Graduates, well, go on, big up in a nice clean self. I see you. Hmm. What are we a little bit over here? I wonder is what pasa go on. What is happening? Graduates, well, go on, big up in a nice clean self. Let me see now. Let me see who is in the building. All right, Sexy B. Good afternoon. Girls are nice. Well, go on. Norma, how are you doing, my sis? You've been a member for 5 months. Talk to me nice, Norma. Big up yourself, Norma, for that. Yes, cotton full cake. Hi, sweethearts. Big up yourself, Tina. Valerie Douglas, how are you doing? Bayesian girl, what's up? Indeed, like up the live, Ashley Bell, Wagwan. Hi, how are you doing? Do you know, before I get into this live, guys, I wanted to say something very quickly. Quickly, but mega get to the point. Because I noticed that, we really have got a mindset problem on social media, a real negative mindset problem on social media. Because honestly, and I've noticed the trending number come, I said to myself, I'm gonna test this, I'm gonna see for myself if I really so it stay for true. If a foolishness mix up and blend, everybody run to my platform. And when it's something that is going to be educational or hard hitting that would make you think, thought provoking content, over here scanty. So it's only when HTK I go out with herself and I misbehave, everybody run over. You understand? And this is the reason why you will never have content that changes for our diaspora. Never. Because Una don't give it the same ratings as you would give it if I was to come on here and say me a beat and teach somebody. I mean, I love it when I beat and teach, But without a doubt, this is what is preferred by the audience. And this is what creates monsters out here on social media. I am looking around and I'm saying to myself, watch out. Come I just go up on my feet for say who live, And me see say, okay, bangaranga go on so. And this so everybody go hitch up, go listen to foolishness. Your brains will never evolve if you keep sticking to the mud and the mire. Your brains will never evolve. All on a consuming on a day-to-day basis is war and foolishness. Una never seem to be able to strike a balance. And this is why we end up with certain kinds of bloggers that will all them do every day in, day out, morning to night. I tell people about their underneath. I cuss people. I tell them about their mother. I dip up on the people. And then on the same one turn around and complain and say, oh my God, they don't have any other content. Oh my God, they don't have, we all have different types of content. But it's what you guys are showing appreciation for. And that is a fact, is what you guys are showing appreciation for. On a showing appreciation for baga and mixed up and gossip. And that is where on investment lie. Every time that kind of crap is out there, everybody run to that and gravitate to that. Anytime we push out with bad self and go out with self, that is when everybody present themselves. It is such a hypocrisy and it will never end. So that is why whenever I hear anybody come to talk about, oh, HDK, with all your intelligence, you should be talking about la di da and la di da. I say, look, pa uno. Yet when I do lives that are educational, uno no depend the same live, but uno ready for come on the page. Whatever page I've made a comment or put a post to come and tell me how I should use my intellect. But when I'm using the intellect and presenting you with quality, uno don't dead. Uno no dead. On a run gun the moment one war going over there so two backside pick up a foot we going over there so while Sinting are going over there so but I will keep trying with my few graduates who are ready for elevation. I will keep trying. You understand? Me now gonna stop present you with some alternatives that will make you think and not make you sit in mental stagnation, caught up in negative cycles of cussing. Because it's only that alone them show appreciation for. And it's such a shame. Because what you're ending up doing is limiting your bloggers into only doing one style of content every day. You understand? No growth, no variation of content. And that's why we have to do it for the love and not for the likes. You have to be passionate about being a blogger because sometimes when you see the way followers, subscribers, and supporters behave towards negative content, it really makes you shake your head when you're trying to present an alternate style of content. It really does. Yes, it's facts. You understand? Big up yourself, Vanessa. Fully yourself. Facts, absolutely. Sexy B. You understand? You love the topic, Ashley. So we're gonna talk about the fact that not all mothers know how to love, and therefore not all mothers deserve to reap the benefits and the rewards of their children. A very taboo subject because we are of the culture where we believe that from you're a mother, you're next to God. Therefore, you should be treated with the utmost respect, the utmost care. And even in your old and dying days, you must get all of the, all of the protection and the care that you're supposed to get until you meet your maker. That is the culture that we are from. It is never discussed when you actually end up with a mother who does not necessarily deserve love from her children. Very rarely discussed. People feel uneasy just imagining something like that, especially when you yourself may have had a really great relationship with your mother. You're thinking, how the hell you for say a mother no deserve that, and is a mother give you life, a mother bring you into this world. So this lady that reached out to me with a story that was quite, when I tell you that it was very disturbing, I struggled to even, I struggled to even imagine that a mother could do something like this to their child. And that she could justify it in her head as rational behavior. You understand? And this lady, she told me several things. She's gonna outline three of the most catastrophic things that has happened to her over a period of time. But in our discussion, she told me several other things that the mother used to do, and I'll go into it as we go through her voice recording. You know how I do it when I'm sharing these stories. I try to get the person who present the story to record their voice, and then you can hear the emotions and so on. But I change the voice for protecting their anonymity. You understand? It's very draining, Trinity. Absolutely. Sometimes I literally shut it down and just move away from it because I can't understand how people can sit there and literally talk about the same garbage every day. It's like, seriously, have you got nothing else to talk about? But as I said, the reason why they keep doing it is because people keep flocking to it. So because they're getting the numbers and the views, them will carry on doing it because it equals a cash check at the end of the day. And generally that's why they all do it, because it really is about money. There are some of us bloggers out here who don't have to come out, like myself, because we are not dependent on social media to stop a gap. But some of these people, literally, this is what pays them. So them have to come out and every day, every minute to try and get those views and clock up that the watching of the ads and all them something there, because them need the money. They do need it. And this is what they'll present to people because that's where the popularity lies. So yeah. That's how it go. So as I was saying, when she was telling me this story, I want you to understand that this lady, she's not the average Joe in the streets. And I was actually really surprised when this person reached out to me to share their story, because if I was to ever tell you guys who it is, uno woulda faint or drop down. If I was to tell you who her mother is, it would be worse. You understand? But this is how I am telling you that some of the members of the upper echelons of society, um, they have got some deep-seated skeletons in their closet that should the masses be aware of it, they'd realize that all that glitters is definitely not gold. You understand? So my could go down in it. We're going to listen to our story. She's gonna, talk it through herself. Occasionally we'll stop and we'll discuss certain key points. All right, hold on.
And a special thanks to Ishiki. Thank you for sharing it. Me personally just want to know if I me want to go through the PK and graduates, as you say, what a guan, what a guan. Big up on yourself and thank you for listening to my story.
Can we all
And
hear it?
special thanks to Ishiki. Thanks for sharing it. Me personally just want to know if I me want to go through this or if anybody else had this experience. But you see, my mother, me hate my mother. I hate her like poison. And I don't think people understand that it's not everybody out there have a great relationship with their mothers. I see my mother, she did a lot of things that were just wrong. And a lot of Jamaican people think that these things are okay to do to a child. And I think it's time that we discuss things like how we discipline our children,
It's very low.
how we correct them, because some of the
All right, hold on.
practices
I'm
that
gonna
our
carry on listening. I'm
mothers
gonna go
have
and get my other
are
speaker.
just not
Let's
right.
see if that one might be better.
And
Hold
I'm
on.
not gonna talk
Because it
about
was low for
father
me too.
because I didn't grow with any father. I didn't have this experience. I want to focus just on mothers because I actually have friends that have similar situations happen to them when they were growing up. So I'm going to try and keep my story as anonymous as possible because I don't want anyone to pick up exactly who I am or who my family are or where I came from so that they can put two and two together. So some of the information I might change a little bit just to throw people off, but the majority of the main points, that's exactly what happened.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna try.
Like I never grew up with any father, so I cannot really comment on what my father would have done had he been around when I was a little girl. But I
Is that
basically
better,
grew up
guys?
with my mother and my two siblings. I had a sister who passed when I was 16 years old. She died from cancer, and my brother, right? So my mother is all I know growing up. My mother is known in our circles for being a very Christian lady. She was very active in the church. She used to make sure that all of us went to church every Sunday. Sometimes we used to go to church all in the week as well for different events that was taking place at church because she was one of the stewardesses and she used to sing in the choir. So people in the church used to really look up to my mother as somebody who was one of the elders in the church as time went on. But I'm going to tell you this, despite the fact that my mother claimed to be a Christian with strong belief in God and tried to raise us according to the principles of the Bible, this woman behind closed doors was a different person altogether from what the public knew her to be.
You know, said this is a typical thing. Let me tell you guys something. I have sat back on social media and observed how some of the, the so-called out there Christians, and when I say out there, I mean the ones who go around the place and it's pure God them a say, and every comment them go up on is pure God and whatever. And then you see certain comments that these Christian people make on other posts when, say, for example, they don't like what is said or they don't like who it's said about. And the nasty things that I've seen these people say. And all in their name, them have God bless, God favored, God chosen, all of them something there. And they're saying things like them wish people would have dead, them wish the most evil things, and they would say things like that in comments. And I say to myself, on the one hand, you're there talking about you're a Christian. On the other hand, you're basically, wishing the worst fate and the worst outcome for people. There is a real issue with those extremists who, are all over social media going on about God. I mean, when I was listening to the recent mix up, because yes, we are listening to it, and I hear a so-called Christian person's name call, I had to shake my head. Because I'm like, what are you even doing there? For your name to call and in a bangaranga in a mix up, and then you said that you're Christian. A whole heap of these Bible bashers, these habakabakabakabas that come on social media and on the internet and even in a real life are some of the wickedest people you will ever come across. Anyway, I digress. Go on, listen.
While we were growing up, she was very strict with us. We were not allowed to go out and be out on the streets. We always had to be in the house. On weekends and in the evenings, we weren't allowed to go out to play. We
That's
had
true,
to be in the
Lisa.
house, either doing chores or reading books or watching television. That is the most fun that we were allowed to have while growing
Hey,
up.
Shaka.
I am actually the oldest of the three of us. My sister that died when I was 16, she was only 12 at the time, so she was 4 years younger than me. And the way the cancer did do her, it was quite a traumatic time. And I think my mother was extremely stressed with the illness and the amount of money that was needed for her care. My brother, he was younger than me by 1 year when my sister died, so he would have been 15 when she passed at the age of 12. But I never really knew my brother after the death of my sister because my mother, she just sent him packing. She sent him off to the country to go and live with my uncle, um, claiming that he needed a male figure in his life and she wanted somebody who would raise him with the same Christian values that she was going to raise me with. And she needed the space to just focus on me because having lost the other child, she really couldn't afford to lose anybody else. She just became very, very overprotective of me. And
Oh.
that is when the the abusiveness started with my mother because leading up to when my sister died, she was strict, yes, but she wasn't what she became afterwards. And this is where I wonder if I should forgive her or if none of this was called for, because to me it felt like pure cruelty, and it's to this day I cannot come to grips with how a mother can do these things to her own child. I need your audience to understand, you see, that my mother was not from a poor background. They always had money. My whole family, them comfortable, right? So this is not a situation of, people want to know better or whatever. She knows better. But this,
So before she continues, I'm just gonna say this because I'm aware that she's in the chat. She's she's listening and she's watching. The first thing I'm gonna say to you, hon, is that when it comes to this kind of thing, it knows no class, it knows no creed. So don't think for a minute that because your family was educated or your family was well off, that there wouldn't be situations like this taking place in it, and it's more likely to happen where there is a lack of education or a lower class structure. I want you to understand actually that a lot of these corruptive behaviors and practices are actually more prevalent as you go further up because of the sheer twisted nature of the things that your mother did, right? There will be situations of abuse in the lower classes of society because of financial frustrations, an inability to make ends meet and so on. It can lead to and spill over onto children. But what I'm hearing in this case, it don't really have anything to do with that. And that kind of twisted thing is not a class or an educated background thing, just to make a point.
This, to me, is how my mother herself was raised. And she thinks that this kind of behavior was normal. So, like I said, we went through all of that trauma with my sister who passed when she was 12 years old. At the time, I was 16. And mommy was always strict and, you know, always restricted us when it came to access to certain things on the outside. Like we couldn't go to parties, we couldn't go to dance, we couldn't do any of them something there. If there was a birthday party, if it was not a birthday party of somebody who was also attending the same church as my mother, we would not be allowed to go. It's as simple as that. As long as it was some other friend that whose parents were not known to my mother, she would never allow us to go and visit them. We couldn't do sleepovers, none of those things we could do. And I
And to be fair, having lost a child to cancer, and obviously she would have been sick for a few years before. They said she was sick from she was 10 and she died when she was 12. All of those things would have made your mother particularly um an anxious mother. She not gonna let you know out on her sight. You understand? She gonna be overprotective. Yes. And okay, she probably was already strict, but that would have made it worse.
almost think that this is one of the reasons why my younger sister, she just, lost the fight because at 12 years old, when she passed, her illness came on quite suddenly. We literally learned about the cancer when she was about 10, and in 2 years she was gone. The cancer was more or less all over her body, and it was
Hmm.
just a fight from then on to sustain life and to give her comfort because there wasn't anything that the doctors could do about it. I will not mention the type of cancer just to once again remove certain facts. Right, so by the time I got to 16, my mother was a different woman. After we cremated our sister, because it was not a burial, it was a cremation, she just became a very dark energy, very, very dark person. And she sent my brother away, as I said, to the countryside to live with my uncle and his wife and their kids. Because she said that she wanted to just focus on myself, because having lost one daughter, she does not want to lose another. I
Hmm.
don't know why she rationalized it like that, but that is how she rationalized it. So I remember one day I came in from school. Our driver picked me up, and I um I came in from school, and my mother, she was at home early because she also works. Well, she worked at the time, and she was home early because he had gotten a phone call from one of my teachers at school to say that I did not complete an assignment and that I must make sure that I complete the assignment.
Millie, you have a point there.
Otherwise, it's going to be a detention. So, poor me, think about it. My sister just died.
Millie, you have
That's
a
probably
point.
why the teacher called because she's not trying to be strict. She thinks that she's doing something good just to remind that I should complete the assignment. And she had apparently called the number on file, and the number on file was my mother's workplace number. Um, so it wasn't even our house number, or maybe she did try the house number and never get through. I don't know because nobody was at home. And it was not the day for the helper to be there, so nobody would have been there to answer the phone either. So she called my mother, and my mother went home to greet me. And when she came home to greet me, I'm expecting nobody to be at home. I'm thinking I'm going to be at home alone, and only to see my mother sat in the living room with a belt.
Hmm.
So I'm like, what is happening? Because listen, Kay, I had never gotten beaten from my mother up until that point. She disciplined us, yes, by taking things away, whatever. She may deny us watching television, but I have never been hit by my mother. And when I saw my mother that day, the rage that was in her, the way she beat me with the belt, eh, let me just tell you that there were welts all over my legs, all over my bottom. I could not sit down for ages because of the beating that I got from my mother that day because I did not finish the assignment.
Hmm. 16.
At 16, I
Hey.
wasn't even a baby at 16. But you see, I was always timid of my mother. I was never the kind of child that talked back to my mother or anything like that. So I just took what I got.
And just to add, guys, I did ask her about her brother, if her brother was as timid as she was. And she said to me, absolutely not. Her brother was actually she said he was very confrontational, and actually very difficult to control. So she sent him away and kept her. She said she was the one out of all three, even though she was the eldest, who was the most timid. She said even the one that died was very feisty and sassy. But she was the one that was very timid, very quiet, very introvert. You understand? And would not talk back to her mother no matter what.
And she sent me to bed at night without any dinner. Fine. After that beating, the next day she was very apologetic. She was like, please forgive her. She don't know what came over her, why she was so angry about it. Because we all went through something traumatic and maybe I was just not in the frame of mind to do the work and she should not have gotten that angry. I forgave my mother instantly. Anyway, like I said, I was 16 by then. Body start develop, all of these little things. And I meet a little boyfriend who lived down the road from us. And we used to talk occasionally. He'd be going past the house, I'd be outside, we'd be talking and stuff like that. And exchange numbers. So we used to call each other on the house phone. One day we were talking on the phone, and when because remember, it's back in the days, so those kind of phones, when somebody pick up the phone, you can almost hear like a little click downstairs because it was the same extension. So you'd hear like somebody pick up the phone. So she picked up the phone and clearly heard that I was talking to a boy. That mother of mine, I'll never forget the night. Okay, I was having a shower and my mother come in the bathroom.
Mm,
She had blended up some Scotch bonnet pepper
outside.
and she came into the bathroom and came, no word of a lie. The woman just started, she started thump me up, start thump me up, said that, me want turn prostitute in the house, me want sell my bodies, that is what out going to happen. And if me ever know what man going to do with me, and the woman held me down on the floor of the bathroom, sit down on me and take the Scotch bonnet pepper and rub right in a man, you know what, you know exactly what me I talk about. Rub it right under me. That is what my mother did.
So, graduate, I asked her for a bit more information when she told me this. I said, what you mean? I mean, because I'm trying to imagine a mother. Big up yourself, Wayne. Big up yourself, bro. I hope you're all right. I'm trying to imagine a mother doing this because for one thing, I know I saw her on video camera while we were talking on WhatsApp, and she's quite a petite lady. She was petite. She said she was petite from she little. Her mother, she showed me a picture of her mom. Her mom was a big lady. She was a big lady. You understand what is a big lady, even know, right? So you can imagine that this was not a small woman that was sitting on top of a child. It was a big woman sat on top of the child. So when I asked her, okay, I can imagine that she rubbed that. I mean, there is different levels to rubbing. Did she just rub on the outside, on the leg, and Ray? The woman tell me said the mother skin out or something. I'm being very graphic here and I'm very sorry. But just to imagine how evil the woman skin out the little girl and rub the Scotch bonnet pepper in there. Now, how many times have we heard stories like this? We've heard them. We've heard them. This is not the only case that we've heard like this as punishment. Simile said there are plenty like this, hundreds. They never show the abuse outside. It's always inside. You understand? And this is what that mother did. Did so you can imagine the pain on this little girl while she was going through this. Mhm.
And when I tell you said the burning that was going on, me never even know how me that could survive. Luckily, it was same way in the shower. So as soon as she do it, as she get up off of me, and she says, "See, you know, that is what man I go do. You. That is what man I go do. You." I had to go into the shower. I was screaming like crazy, just a scream, and just a turn on the shower. And it wasn't a shower head that could come off. Me just a
And just so you can picture exactly the kind of environment that this took place. Because I said to her, you're screaming like that, and not even a neighbor. Don't hear, nobody not here said this happened to you and that you need help. She explained where she lived, right? And when I say upper echelons of society, you're gonna understand. This is all the way up at in Cherry Gardens. You hear me? And where her house is, there was land in between her and the neighbors on either side. And we're talking about a big house. It's not small. Okay. So just so you know.
But then I with my rag, I throw the water up underneath me. I try cool myself down, just a psh with the water, just trying to cool myself down, cool it down, cool it down, cool it down, cool it down. It eventually calm, it not completely stop, but eventually calm. I tell my mother she gone downstairs and I am still upstairs just crying my eyes out. Yeah, I'm a very fair skinned girl. So, and when I said everything down there did red, it did just red. red and raw looking, just red and irritated. But then I cry, I'm going go to mommy and say, Mommy, how you could have do something like this to me and whatever, and and it's hurting and she just looked at me and she said, Go and get the calamine lotion from out of the cupboard upstairs in my bathroom and use that. You will be fine.
Hmm.
It was to teach you a lesson so you understand exactly what men will do to you. Stay away from that boy down the road. That is all this woman said to me. So that was the second major incident that happened when I was 16. And it's interesting because the things that happened to me, Kay, were not like every day. It was sporadic, out of the blue, sometimes not provoked. Sometimes there was a situation that called for some kind of reprimand, and she would just come up with the most cruel things to do to me.
So just to explain, so like I said, she's only gonna go into three of the main incidents that took place that really affected her throughout life. Um, well, I think it's four actually she describes, but some of the things that we spoke about on the phone, she told me how her mother would use an iron. She still has a burn mark on her left leg, where her mother burns her for not ironing her uniform properly. She also did things like she would when she saw that her daughter was using too much sugar in her cereal, she forced her to eat an entire bowl of sugar as punishment. So she would put her to sit and made her eat an entire bowl of sugar, which she then threw up afterwards. She would also, if say for example, she wasted her food, what she would do is she would deny her any food for an entire weekend, and she'd always choose the weekends to do things like this. So she would deny her for an entire weekend any food. She would allow her to have drink, but if she dared to touch any food, it would be licks. So she would go for 2 days with no meals, no snack, no nothing solid, only liquid. So I'm giving you some examples of the kind of crazy things that happens to this girl while her mother was going through. And I genuinely believe, graduates, that this mother had undealt with grief and it turned into this monster. But anyway, let us carry on.
All right, another occasion happened now. Because as you can imagine, I'm at the age of rebellion. This is not a little girl anymore. So even though mommy did what she did about me talking to this boy, of course, me still talk to him. Me just hide and do it. Try to, make sure that she don't find out, right? Anyway, started to become aware of my looks. We listen, everybody, all the women in our family, we have hair, we have long hair, and there's no need to perm it or cream your hair out or anything like that because our hair is more or less Indian quality. But I decided that I wanted to be a little bit, stylish with my hair. So go to the pharmacy. I'ma buy a bleaching kit
Lisa, to answer
because I
your
say I
question,
want to put highlight in my hair. I never asked my mother anything because I decided that I was going to do it on the inside of my hair, and she would not know anything about it. So um, I got the kits from the pharmacy when mommy don't know anything about this. I actually went with my aunt to the pharmacy, and my aunt, she's the opposite of what my mother was, very much so the opposite because she was very relaxed. She never business and she never said nothing. So me just buy it, and she actually paid for it for me. So I got the kit went home and put the highlights in my hair, but I did it on the inside of my hair. So if I brush my hair back and put my hair in one, there's no way my mother would know that it was there. That is what I was reasoning in my head. So one day I had washed my hair and I had my hair out and I was towel drying it. I'm in my room doing this, and mommy she comes up for some reason or another to see me. And she sees my hair and she notices the streaks in my hair. My hair is brown, but it had some blonde streaks in it because of the highlight. She went just crazy. And I never expected that kind of response because I'm thinking that, it's my hair. I never do anything to it other than add a little style to it. And okay, mommy went and get the scissors
Hmm.
and she walked it through my head. I tell you, some my hair was long, as in down to my waist. My mother cut off my hair down to my scalp, cut it right off like a boy. Me and her in the room, literally, me a scream for murder. And I try fight off her hand and whatever. But every time I try put my hand in the way the woman would cut me with the scissors, I ended up with these slices on my hands. So it didn't make sense me putting my hand up because she was just cutting and she did not care that she was cutting me. Tell me say me want on bigger man if I think I'm a grown. How dare me do this to me here without asking her permission? And when me tell her say Auntie, like me that said, Auntie Rose was with me when I bought it and she never have any problem with it. She went even crazier because at first she was only cutting it to show the leg, but when me tell her say Auntie Rose and me go buy it, she
Yep.
went down to the scalp key, ball me off. It's a good thing me never ugly.
So, but yes, she claims that she's a Christian to the outside world, to the outside world, and it's interesting this because we have seen several videos on social media, haven't we, of parents shortening their children. We've seen little boys with dreadlocks getting their dreadlocks cut out. We've seen little girls getting their hair cut for whatever reason, if it's about, and it all has to do with disciplining. There is a huge shame that comes from cutting your child's hair for admonishing them. When you cut their hair, it's almost as though you are erasing a part of their identity. Remember, this is something that also adds to your beauty, to your sense of self. And by cutting it in an aggressive, angry, and unwilling way, you are, in fact, deflating their confidence. You are erasing a part of their identity and you are causing them shame. Even if we were to look at the biblical context of cutting here, when it comes to Samson, it was about removing strength. So you are, in fact, really spiritually harming your child when you make that kind of judgment and say that it is an error, it is a form of discipline. Now, some mothers will do things like take out braids, cut out the braids out of a daughter's hair as punishment. Not cut the hair itself, but cut out the braids because she put on the braids and she start behave like she too big, right? So she basically take out the hairstyle. That's a little bit different. I'm not gonna come out here and judge all mothers and say, it's all for the same purpose. I'm talking about cutting out hair from the roots, okay? There is a real spiritual thing attached to that. And this mother basically sought to crush her daughter's confidence by cutting because she went and do her hair. So I said to her, was your mother jealous of your beauty? Because you mentioned to me that your mother was big, and I could see from the picture she was a plus size lady. And when I said plus size, it wasn't a sexy plus size. She did big. You understand? And I said, was your mother jealous of your beauty? Because the lady is quite pretty, and she was beautiful as a child. Okay. Um, and I said, was your mother jealous of your beauty? She said sometimes she thought so, but her mother never had no man or anything that she could ever think of, right? And never brought men around more than so, other than workers or clients that would come and go, but they would not, they wouldn't interact in any romantic way with her mother as far as she was aware. But I said that there is a strong possibility that jealousy was very much a part of what she was doing to you when she cut your hair.
But the short hair did fit me, but I had to tell all my friends that it's just style because they were shocked. Because if you can imagine a girl that had long, long hair and then see her the next day at school because this happened. It was a Sunday that I was washing my hair to get ready for school the following day. When I go, when I go school Monday with my hair well short, they were shocked because it's like first them see a girl with long hair and now them see this bald girl.
And when me tell you, say she went to a top high school, I mean, she went to a top high school. So I don't know if you can even imagine it is a top high school with both boys and girls attending. So it's not immaculate. So get immaculate out of your head. It's a top school. All right.
Hey, I just hold it and I didn't tell anyone exactly what happened. That was my mother's idea of punishing me for, you know, putting chemicals in my hair without letting her know. Oh, and by the way, I was very good at styling off these things at school because at the end of the day, people used to see me as being very rebellious anyway, because at school I was able to be more of myself than I was when I was at home. So they just thought that, she just did a diva thing and cut off her hair, because them girly hair can grow back in a no time. So that is how they looked at it. The cuts on my arms, I just explained it away with Lord, when me that try cut me hair, me cut myself, that kind of thing. Um, and people just accepted it because they would never look at somebody like me and think, and my mother, and think that I was going through the kind of things that I was going through with her.
So, Lisa, just to answer your question, because you asked that question, like, how is it that she was going through all of this? She never once told a teacher, she never once told friends, and so on. I also asked her the same thing, but really and truly, she reminded me of who her mother was. And it's because I can't say, but the publicity would have been extremely bad to the point where, in other words, she's thinking that if she blows the lid on this, it's not only going to affect her, but it's also going to affect their standard of living and blah blah blah. Remember, this is Jamaica. She's not gonna end up being taken into social services. So in her mind, she's thinking if she got social, if social workers come take her, what kind of living condition she gonna be in. Remember, she's a child. She used to her creature comforts and all of that. So she's like, me no want to live in a no impoverished state. And also remember as well, she's also battling with her love for her mother because she does love her, right? And it's always the case that you end up loving the person who is the most abusive to you. So, and what is the name of that syndrome they call it? What is it? Where you are when you are attracted to your abuser. I can't remember the name. I want to put it in the chat, right? But she had this bond, this trauma bond with her abuser. So, she's not wanting to blow everything out and make everybody know what's going on. Her mother is of high standing. I mean, Tapanaris, right? She don't want people to look at her mother different, look at her different. All the social alienation that would come from, from this disgrace. All of that she had try avoid, right? And it was not just her mother, it was the fact that there were other family members and stuff that would also feel the backlash of it. So she felt like she was carrying a burden for her family that she could not expose.
And, you know,
Stockholm, that is it, Stockholm
anyway,
syndrome.
so that happened. So the guy that I was talking to, he eventually became my boyfriend. And as he also went to my school,
This
it
one
was
right
really
here, Millie.
easy
Let me
for us
replace
to
that.
always
Excellent.
hook up during school times. And when I started to get involved in school activities, my mother allowed me to stay for after school clubs because I was a part of the swim team. So, sometimes we would have, practice sessions and, training so that we could get ready for our inter-school competitions. And yes, it was during these after school sessions that my boyfriend and I would also link up. I would tell Liza about the time that she's supposed to come and collect me, and or she would send the driver to come and collect me because it was between herself and the driver. Because she also had a driver that basically did errands for her through her business. My mother, she ran a very well-known company. I'm not going to say which one. And she was known in high circles, so it was fairly easy for me to kind of pull the wool over her eyes with certain things because she was often very busy. So the guy and we engaged in activities, and I I had the worst thing that you could ever imagine happen with the kind of mother that I had. I got pregnant. Yes. I got pregnant at the age of 17 years old. By this time, I am in lower sixth form and pregnant for this guy. And I'm just like, Lord have mercy. How am I going to deal with this? No, it's funny because when I
So I'm going to ask you to brace yourself. Okay? This part of the story gets very intense. I'm warning you, there are trigger warnings here. Um, some of the things that you're about to hear, it may pull up trauma. It's not going to be an easy road, this part of the story. So I'm just warning you, if you have children around, please make sure that they are not present. Remove them from hearing this, okay? It's not gonna be easy. And if you know that you can't handle certain things, right? Um, please just log off because this is not one for no bag of crow. This is one for people who really want to understand just exactly how this kind of thing can affect people, and you have to be strong enough to hear it. Okay? All right.
discovered that I was pregnant, I wasn't having any side effects, no nausea or morning sickness or anything like that. I just missed my period. And when I missed my period, I went and I bought a pregnancy test. And yes, it was indeed positive. Now it's interesting because when I dress up, nobody can tell that I was 17. And when I went to the pharmacy, nobody questioned it. I went to a pharmacy that was out by Manor Park, and I got a pregnancy test. They thought I was 18, so there was no eyebrows raised or anything. Um, and you know, I did my test at home, and yes, I was pregnant at 17 years old. So, you can imagine that discussion with my mother. She went crazy when I told her that I was pregnant. She was crying. She was so disappointed in me. And I was like, well, I don't want to have the child. I want to have an abortion. I don't want the child. And she said, of course not. You're not having the child. But above all things, we can't let the boy know and we can't let anybody else know that you are pregnant because I don't want your chance spoiled for you to move on to get married to somebody who is up there in society. They're not going to want you if they find out that you had some child or you have some baggage. No man wants to raise somebody else's child. And that's basically the kind of thing that she was telling me. Now, honestly, Kay, I expected a worse reaction from my mother because I know that she was capable of being very cruel. So I was actually relieved that she didn't get as mad as I thought she was going to get. At night, I went to my bed and I was asleep. And I wake up to not just my mother, but my mother and some strange lady that I've never seen before in my bedroom. And I wake up and I say, Mom, what is going on? Who is this person? And she goes, don't worry about that. Just come with us to the bathroom now. We're gonna deal with this. So, okay, the lady that was there, I later recognized that she was my mother's work colleague, somebody that used to do business with my mother. And she had this bottle, this brown liquid.
Hmm.
I basically had to consume all of the herbs. I don't know what kind of herbs was in there for, the whole night. I had to keep going back every couple of hours, having this herb, like 2 tablespoons at a time. 2 tablespoons every 2 hours is what I was having until the entire bottle was finished. The entire process took all night. It started from about, I don't know, I think it was about 10 o'clock until about 6 o'clock. Yeah, 6 o'clock in the morning. I was exhausted to say the least, and all of this happened on a Saturday night. By the Sunday, I was allowed to go to sleep. I woke up to terrible cramps in my stomach. When I tell you cramps, I was bleeding from my vagina, bleeding excessively. I thought, well, this is it. Whatever it is that they've given me, I've definitely lost the baby. I could not have been more than a few weeks pregnant, to be honest, because um, even though I took the test, I know that I had missed my period. It was the only period I had missed. So I could not have been more than about 4 or 5 weeks gone, maximum. When I kept crying to mommy, telling her how much I was in pain, all she did was say, listen, this is what you wanted, so you have to deal with the consequences. Just lie down. She gave me no painkillers. She gave me no comfort. She just left me to have to deal with the blood myself. She just gave me pads to wear. I had to, change myself, wash my sheets myself, clean up the sheets and stuff. So I just put towels down and I was just bleeding excessively. The following week, she basically never even took me to the doctor. I was off school for the whole week. The Monday, the same lady came back and she
Hmm.
brought another pregnancy test and she said, I needed to test yourself, go and weigh on that stick. I had stopped bleeding by the Monday evening, so I took the test and I was still pregnant, Kay.
Hmm.
I was still pregnant.
Hmm.
I don't know how.
Backside.
What the hell you gave to me? How is it that I was still bleeding like well that I bled so much and I was
Basically, I think that whatever herbs they gave her literally just brought on a false period. It was more a shedding of her womb, the lining of her womb, than anything else. But the pregnancy still held people. And this is where it takes a sinister twist.
still pregnant. When I told my mother, I saw this look come over her face of absolute disgust. Like I could never do anything right, not even to lose the child. As I said, I was off for the week. She had called in the school. I don't even know what she told the school, but I was off for the week. Wednesday night, I was sat down on the veranda. My mother was out, and I was on the phone with the boy, and he was like, "What happened to you? Why aren't you at school?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm not feeling well, so I'm off school because I feel sick." I still did not tell this boy that I was going through all of this, just out of fear, the embarrassment, not wanting the information to get out there. I saw my mother turn up at the gate. I was like, "Listen, I have to go because she's here." I hung up the phone. My mother comes into the house with about four men. Four men I have never seen before. They blatantly look like they were from the ghetto. Then they look rough. Or we would have called bad man. And K before I could have said is what happening, mommy. The man them descend on me. One of them grabbed me around my mouth. Another one hold on pa my hand. Another one hold on pa my hand. It's like I was just being gang attacked. And the fourth one start one piece a thumping in my belly and them just a drag me go straight into the living room while all of this is happening.
Jesus.
And all my mother kept saying was, "Don't hit her in her face or anywhere else. Just thump her straight in her belly, straight in her belly." I got repeated force to my stomach, my lower abdomen. At one point, I passed out. I don't even know what happened to my body or anything. I just went unconscious from the pain and what I was experiencing. It was so traumatic. Okay, I wake up and I was in my bedroom. My mother was sat by the bed. The men were gone. And I just remember looking down at my body and just seeing blood everywhere on the bed. And she said, "As soon as you feel able, get up and go and have a shower so I can get rid of this linen because it is clear that you have lost the baby now." The lady just walked out of the room, left me there, paying up, could hardly walk. I had to crawl to the bathroom and just, I was vomiting. There was blood on the floor, and all I could hear was her in there stripping the bed. And I could hear her wiping up after me, just wiping up the floor and everything. I stayed in the bathroom on the floor for a long time. It's a memory that I try to suppress even talking to you about this now. It's so difficult to imagine that my own mother would do this to me. But needless to say, I did lose the child. Um, I never went back to school. I never finished six.
And bear in mind, graduates, she wanted to have an abortion. She did want to have one. She said she didn't want to have the child. But she didn't want to have the child she didn't want to lose a child in this way. The mother, because of trying to save face, would not take her through legitimate channels to get something done, would not contact a doctor to get something done. Even though we know that these things are more or less banned in our country, there are ways that you can still do it. You know, and you could have reached out to a professional who would have done it in a way that was sensible and healthy. So she tried the backdoor channels, and when that didn't work, she then resorted to brute violence in order to get rid of that child in a forceful way. You understand? So she basically ended up by hurting her this way. She had she had expelled the child from her body quite violently. You understand? So the woman has ruined her, and to the point where no, she did not even go back to sixth form.
Um, um, I went into a lot of depression. And my mother, she kept me at home. The helper was the one who really was my caregiver. And that helper was sworn to secrecy. She couldn't talk about anything, All she kept saying to me is, boy, your mother will keep you and she would keep.
Angela want tell us that she have the
But
police in her pocket here,
that was it really.
or at least had.
All my friends, they kept trying to come to see me. My mother was like, she's not available, she's not in a good state, she's not well. I don't know what she told them was wrong with me, but you know, no phone calls. I was I was more or less a prisoner in my own house for about 3 months before I was fit and well enough to walk around and stuff. And my mother, she had said to me, you need to work, so I'm gonna give you a job at the office. So I was working with my mom. Um, I'd lost contact with my friends by then. They kind of like moved on. They just thought that I was strange, that my mother was strange, and they just never dealt with me after that. Even occasionally, as time went on, I would see one or two people that I used to go to school with, and it would just be a hail and what happened to you, and I'd just be like, oh, that I had like a really bad pneumonia, and I tell them all kinds of lies, that physically I was so frail, and all kinds of lies I would just tell them, and just to get over it, just to change the subject. But it never showed on me after that time. I looked fit and well. And that was the last of the really violent things that my mother ever did to me. But he, mm, remember this by this time now, I'm about 18, as time progressed and I'm working with her. And I decided that I wanted to go to the States, um, which I did. I migrated to. I went to live with my aunt, another aunt, a different one. And I lived with her for a while. I decided to go back to school, which I was quite proud of myself. I did do that. I accomplished everything I should academically. Um, I met someone, married, got my green card, got my citizenship. I mean, now I'm in my late 40s, right? Um, but what really was the outcome of this for me was that I am unable to have children as a
Jeez.
result of what took place. So in my marriage, I was lucky in that my husband already had a child, so I took that child as my own and loved that child. Child is now a teenager now. I love that child like it's my own child. Um, but this is the situation. My elderly mother had a stroke because by now she's well up in by now she well up in years. So she had a stroke last year, and I had to go back to Jamaica to help to look after my mother. Our relationship has been more or less distant since.
So you see how time longer that rope. So just to answer the question, she did not have any children and she could not have children after the trauma that her body went through. So this is something that she has had to live with and she has to live with for the rest of her life, her inability to conceive as a result of how that situation happened. But as dramatic irony would have it, the mother has had a stroke. She had a stroke last year. Okay. Hmm.
I love the country. We speak occasionally, but I have not been back until last year. And when I went back, the state that I found my mother in was almost like karma. When I tell you that,
So you see, when I hear certain stories and I hear people cursing people who have not returned home to look after their elderly parents, these are the kind of things I want people to consider. The fact that it is not all the time that the parents who are left behind were great parents, that there sometimes is a very good damn reason why some children, adult children, have left home and never look back. And even when their parents are sick and ailing, never look back. Sometimes we must be less judgmental and less quick to say, oh, but it's your mother. Oh, but it's your father. Oh, but how you fit do your parents like that? There are people out here who are carrying weight of of things that they have yet to explore or share with another living soul. And sometimes these reasons hinder them from showing the appropriate love and care to their elderly and aging parents.
all of her so-called society friends had abandoned her, and she was she was under care. She had a caregiver, and her money could afford her that service. But you could tell that she was not being cared for well enough. Her sister was the one that I was in touch with the most, the one that, that auntie that took me to get the hair dye thing, the bleaching kit for my hair. And that auntie, um, has always been there for my mother. So she's the one who arranged most of the things that my mother needs. And she's been in touch with me to let me know how she's getting on. But she's aware of everything that happened. I told her because I was always closer to her. And
And just to add, because I know that you are listening and you are watching the comments, the fact that you told your aunts everything that happened to you and your aunts also did not act on it, did not do anything about it, um, also shows that you were neglected by your aunt as well. I'm just letting you know. So no matter how much you said that you were close to her, the fact that she did not try to get justice for you or do anything about it is a concern right there. So she basically allowed you to keep your secret because it was out of the face of the family and the public. She was also trying to save face for the record.
I was there with my mother. Hey, I'm not going to lie. I was very impatient with her, very harsh with her. I never treated her well while I was there for that 1 year. As much as this is my mother and I'm supposed to treat her with love, all the bitterness, all the anger came back. I remember once I actually put my hand on my mother when she was complaining about some food that she thought she didn't like. And I just lost it and I gave her some blows.
Hmm.
I gave her some blows. And it's at that point I called my husband and I said, I cannot stay here because if I do, I think I'm going to take this woman's life. And my husband flew down and he came for me and said, listen, I'm just going to try or
Ask
just
again,
try
bro,
to
Shaka.
get somebody to look after her, but you cannot stay and care for your mother. Otherwise, she has to go into a home if you find that that is actually cheaper. So we did that. We looked for elderly care homes, found one in a fairly uptown area that I know that she would appreciate, and that's where my mother is now. As much as I know that it was wrong what I did, when I tell you that, you know, I I at one point I even remember that she was being herself, cursing about something that I didn't do well.
130 odd of you on the live. I would really appreciate it if showed a little appreciation for the show and just like up the live. That's all I ask. Just bump up the algorithms for me, please, and like up the live. Because, at the end of the day, we're spending quality time together, really listening to something that, yes, it might be traumatic, but it is such an interesting perspective, but at the same time, uno na show no appreciation for my channel. Uno na like up your life. Come on, man. At the least uno can do.
And the pump when me give my mother straight in her eye. Her eye was instantly black and fat. And she fell over. And I just looked at her and I said, that's for all those blows that that those men gave me in my stomach and for my
Jesus,
childlessness.
please.
Okay, I feel really guilty now. I've come back to the States, that's where I am. And I do feel really guilty, but I don't know if anyone understands the resentment that I have towards this lady. I think I did the right thing by not caring for her because I can't get over the hurt. I think I did the right thing by putting her in a home. And now I think I'm going to turn my back until the day she leaves this earth because I don't believe she deserves any of my love at all. Anyway, I don't know if anyone else can understand this story, but I just wanted people to know that there are times when some people do separate themselves from their mother. It's because of the cruelty that we endured as children, as young people, um, in the name of so-called discipline. And I know that my case might be an extreme one that some mothers probably only just beat their kids, right? Um, with a belt. But my mother was a different level of evil. Anyway, HDK, thank you so much for sharing my story and big up to your graduates. All right, as always, I watch. I'm not a typer, so I'll be looking at the comments.
All right. I'm gonna address Trini P. So Trini P says, Bro Shaka, I'm not a sucker for all stories. Did she get pregnant the first time she had sex, or she was sexually active as a minor? Was she a delinquent child the mother could not control? So I'm gonna say this to answer Trini P. Trini P, her pregnancy was her first pregnancy. She was not pregnant before that situation. That was her only pregnancy. Um, in terms of whether or not she was a delinquent child, she was actually a very submissive child. So I don't know if you missed that part. She was rebellious at school, however. Um, and often did get herself into situations at school where she was getting detentions and stuff like that. So in terms of what happened at school, it was very different to what happened at home. And every time she would get a detention, her punishment would be no food or some cruel thing. Okay. Um, so if that's what you call being a delinquent child that was hard to control, then that would amount to 90% of teenagers. Because at some point, because of the chemical imbalance a teenager goes through, they become difficult to control during times when they're faced with dealing with authority. Now, is that any excuse? Anything that I said there? Any reason or rationale for what that mother would have done? Regardless of whatever was happening at school. When it came to her mother, she was timid as a mouse, but she needed to release that somewhere. Her changes somewhere, and her school was her only place where she could be herself. I know she could be herself and not get lit down or get punished dramatically. Is that a reason for her to have been treated the way she was treated? Does that justify anything? Because to me, it seems as though you're trying to find some kind of justification for a mother who would do these things. And there is no justification at all. Because no amount of um misbehavior should lead to a mother taking criminals to physically assault her own child. How? How would that be okay? No matter how many sides there are to a story, how can we sit back here and try to justify such cruelty from a parent? How could we justify the parents giving her all kinds of chemicals to try to expunge a child, and then when that doesn't work, then turn to physical violence, repeated blunt force trauma to the stomach, under duress by strangers, and then the lack of aftercare. Is that justifiable at all? Come on now. Sometimes I think because we have gone through certain things of similar nature, and there are parents that we loved, because we have that trauma bond, we seek to justify such cruelty. And we see any reason to try to save face of those parents of ours who may have put us through similar things. We are thinking that, oh, but I know that my mother loved me. I don't want to think any other way. And yes, she would have done something like this. It's not acceptable. And this is how we need to challenge our parenting skills and really start to revisit some of the old practices and eliminate them. Now, I know that one of the biggest issues that we have as parents is how to discipline our children when they've done something wrong. And I have counseled many parents in previous roles. Remember, I told you I was a domestic abuse officer. And I've had to counsel parents who have come from migrant countries where it's perfectly normal to take a belt to a child or to use physical force, and try to explain to them that, especially in a first world country where such things are frowned on quite heavily, you have to learn alternate ways of disciplining. And it really is about using a more open communication approach with your child. Now, why is it that a child should feel that she needs to speak to change her hairstyle? Because her mother is overly conservative and has not opened up her mind to the developments in her own daughter. That is a limitation in the mother, not a limitation in the child. Maybe the child was too precocious, at which point you need to become your child's best friend. Because if you separate yourself from that child and decide that you are going to be that child's slave master and not your child's best friend when they decide that they're going to go too big for their boots, you are going to have problems, because whatever it is that you're trying to beat out of them, they're going to hide and do it. And it's going to be 10 times worse because it's not guided. And we don't know how to remain friends with our children but still have boundaries in place. It's a challenge. But you need to set an environment where your child feels comfortable to speak about the things that they want to do. If my child comes to me and says, Mommy, I want to do a tattoo, and I will say to them, okay, you want to have a tattoo. I'll talk to them about the risk. I'll let them know, listen, If you really want to do that, you need to be able to do it when you are able to look after it properly and it doesn't get an infection. We also need to choose the appropriate place for you to go to that's licensed and hygienic. We have to make sure that you're not putting it somewhere that it can distort your features, because think about it, you may want to get a nice job. And if you put a tattoo somewhere where everybody can see it may deter them from employing you because certain jobs demand certain look. So you may want to think of a position for your tattoo where it doesn't show when you put on a suit or it doesn't show when you have on certain clothing. You understand? Talk them through it. Give them the rationale. The moment say, which tattoo? Tattoo in which house? Who for house? So where I go with tattoo? You must be mad. And by the time you look, your 16-year-old come back with tattoo and you don't even know. Whereas if you had that conversation, they may have waited until 19. They may have waited until 20. Two of you may have gone to that tattoo parlor together. May have chosen something a bit discreet, not too, extreme. Yes? Or may have chosen not to do it at all based on the discussions that you have. But we have got a very narrow perspective on life. And many times our narrow-mindedness stops us from being able to communicate with our children about who they are. And we miss out on them. We miss out on their personalities. We don't know who they are because in front of you, they pretend to be X. And behind your back, they are something else. And when they are something else behind your back and you are not present and you are not there to guide them because you are not there as a friendly voice that loves them and protects them, they are making decisions on their own and their decisions are reckless and feckless. We have to be careful to see the signs of change in our teenage children, especially, and realize when hormones are raging, know that their minds are not developed, that they need your involvement. You have to know what they like and what they don't like, not just look at them as a project where you have to be telling them which direction to turn, up or down. You understand? Right or left. And your voice and everything you say goes. This is where you end up with that sense of rebellion because they feel they can't speak to you. You understand? I remember when I asked my mother, how our babies formed. That's time. I must have been about, I don't know, I think about 12 or 11. So anyway, I asked my mother, how are babies born? How babies born? You know what my mother do? To backside, graduate, my mother bought me a book. When I tell you, so that book traumatized me. That book traumatized me. That book was titled How I Was Born. That's the title of the book. When I open up a book, appear picture and description. And when I say picture, picture of everything. This is what daddy looks like naked. This is what mommy looks like naked. When mommy and daddy feel happy, they come together like this. And then it was so graphic. There were diagrams, there were pictures, and I'm telling you, graduate, when it came to the part where it showed what the sperm do, where it go, all of that something there, it showed me when the mother about to give birth, how she in a pain. It show one picture with the woman with the baby head that come out for her. That listen, I tell you, say when I tell you, say when I done with that book, I was so scared. I was so scared. The thing traumatized me. It was the worst thing. Too much information is also dangerous, right? Because it was telling me far more than I needed to know. And it left me with a million questions by the time it was done. And I had to say to my mother, Mom, seriously, why did you give me that book? And for one thing, I never looked at her the same because every time I looked at her, I was like, ew, you did that with my dad? That's so disgusting. So, it was too clinical. It needed a bit more context to it and so on. But as I'm saying, there's no handbook for being a parent out there. You make mistakes, right? But the important thing is to verbally communicate with your child. Talk to your children. and understand how they feel. But I'm gonna say this to that lady, your mother went through PTSD after the death of your sister. Notice that you said leading up to that, she had never been abusive other than being over strict, which is probably about protection. But after the death of that little girl, she became a different entity altogether. This is to do with grief that's not dealt with. And as a result of that, she turned all of her anger, everything that she felt in a negative way, she turned it on you. And she used you as her outlet to relieve herself. And that was where the abuse came in for you. You understand? So because she never dealt with that grief, that was the outcome of it. And that also tells us something, because when somebody is going through grief and don't get any counseling and don't get any help, it can turn into a whole other demon, right? So I'm saying to you that while I understand you feel really bad about what you ended up doing while you were in Jamaica last year, and some people might say, well, it's justifiable. It really isn't. And I'm not going to say that it's okay for you to have. Basically, you have stepped into her shoes and you are now living out your trauma on your mother when she's at a stage of vulnerability and she's not able to fight back. That's exactly what she did to you. You don't want to repeat that cycle. Because likewise, when it comes to, say, for example, you're over there in America, you end up looking after that partner of yours, his elderly mother. You are going to see your mother in her. Yes. And it may end up being a cycle that you repeat. I strongly suggest that you get some help, get some counseling for the things that you have been through. Talking it through on HDK's platform is not going to solve anything other than give you perspectives based on the chats and things that we're saying. But if it's one thing I'd like to give to you is the necessity of you to go and get some professional intervention for what you have been through so that you do not repeat this process and repeat the cycle on somebody else. Okay? It wasn't fair what you've been through. But right now, taking it out on a mother that cannot actually fight back or, speak up for herself, because when we spoke about the stroke, you mentioned that she couldn't speak properly. She was all slurred and stuff, so she couldn't fully express herself. Half of her body was paralyzed. All of that. It's not okay. So while you did that out of anger, frustration, a need for revenge, all of that bitterness, everything that is all justifiable based on the things you went through, please don't become your mother, whatever you do. Big up yourself, graduates. Thank you very much for attending a touch of class with HTK. I hope you found the topic interesting. Thank you so much for those of you in the chat who have been so participatory, sharing your experiences, talking through everything and showing empathy with this lady's story. I really appreciate every single one of you. And it's so nice to see my class still have a nice number, despite the fact that we're not talking about baga baga and passa passa. It goes to show you that there's still hope for those of you on social media who want to experience something alternate from the negativity, but still walk away with thought-provoking content. Big up yourself, like up the live on your way out of class. This is your girl, Teacher K. Bye-bye.